I was in the delivery room, waiting to give birth when I got the call from my husband. He told me, his voice calm and matter-of-fact, "Sonny, I've been cheating on you. Let's get a divorce now, before the baby is born. Candy is young. She can't handle the gossip. I have to make things right by her, give her a proper status. And don't even think about using this baby to trap me. You, of all people, should know how painful it is for a child to be born unwanted." I looked at the picture he sent me and gave an understanding nod. I didn't break down into hysterics or start a huge fight like I would have before. I also didn't tell him that the precious young woman he was so obsessed with was a socialite with AIDS, and that he, after his long period of indulgence, would most likely not even survive the mandatory 1-month cooling-off period for our divorce. Liam Harrison came to the hospital with the divorce papers right after I had given birth. It was a difficult delivery, and I was barely hanging on. He glanced at my deathly pale face, his brow furrowing instinctively. There wasn't a trace of concern or tenderness in his eyes. There was only annoyance that I had gone against his wishes. "I told you not to have this baby," he said. "Candy doesn't want a child competing for my attention." I looked down at the sleeping baby in my arms and managed a weak smile. "I couldn't help it. Your call came too late. By the time you were proposing to Candy, I was already on the operating table. The baby wasn't supposed to be born today, not according to the original due date. But Candy sent me a dead rat in the mail, and the shock sent me into premature labor. While I was at the hospital waiting, I called Liam countless times, but he never picked up. Just as I was being wheeled into the operating room, fireworks started exploding outside the window. I focused my eyes and saw it. It was Liam putting on a show to make his little mistress happy. He had spent a fortune preparing a spectacular marriage proposal. A path of roses, a sky full of fireworks. And there, against the pitch-black night, were the words Liam had spelled out with drones. "Candy, I love you." And it was to the sound of those celebratory explosions that I endured a traumatic labor to deliver our child. The doctors issued critical condition notices several times. My calls to him went completely unanswered. In the end, I had to grit my own teeth and sign the consent form for the surgery. And coincidentally, he showed up right after the baby was born. It wasn't out of concern for me, but to pressure me into signing the divorce papers. He wanted me to take the baby and get out, to make way for his new love. I sighed silently to myself, but I still forced a smile as I took the divorce agreement from his hand. As I tried to sit up, I accidentally tore the incision on my abdomen. Bright red blood immediately soaked through the gauze, but Liam's frown only deepened. "Sonny, you don't have to put on a show and act pitiful for me. I'm not completely heartless. I won't shortchange you on the money. Just sign the papers quietly, and I'll pay all the child support in one lump sum. You'll have enough for a comfortable life." My hand, holding the pen, paused for a moment. I looked at Liam's cold, indifferent face and felt a surprising lack of sadness. Perhaps I had simply run out of tears. I remember when I first found out Liam was cheating, I cried my eyes out and even threatened to kill myself. But as he watched me, 1 foot over the window ledge, he just looked at me with complete indifference. "Sonny, stop crying. I haven't had feelings for you in a long time," he said. "There was a time when your tears would have broken my heart, but now they just make me sick." That night, with Candy urging him on the phone, he walked out without a second glance. He left me there to cry until I passed out. I cried for a long, long time, and in that time, I finally understood just how cruel a man can be when his heart has changed. Unwilling to let it go, I decided I would take him down with me and started digging up information on Candy. I was ready to keep fighting. I wanted everyone to see Liam for the monster he was. But the moment I saw Candy's photograph, it all changed. All the hatred, all the resentment, it just evaporated. Because I recognized her instantly. The pure, innocent first love in Liam's eyes was an AIDS patient I had treated in the past. And Liam has a congenital heart condition. If he were to get infected, it could kill him at any moment. In that instant, a sense of peace washed over me. Fate would ensure that every heartless person pays the price they deserve. All I had to do was give things a little push at the right time. So I stopped fighting. I stopped making a scene. I focused on my pregnancy and played the part of the perfect, polite Mrs. Harrison. And I waited quietly for the day Liam Harrison would die. My moment of reflection was cut short by Liam's growing impatience. Thinking I was hesitating because I couldn't let go, he tapped his fingers irritably on the table. "Sonny, what are you stalling for now?" he snapped. "Did you think having the baby would make me respect you more? Let me be clear. I don't love you, and I could never love a child you gave birth to. If you won't sign, I'll file for divorce myself. I'll make sure your child has the same miserable life you did. It's true what they say. The person who knows you best knows exactly how to hurt you the most. My parents divorced the year I turned 18. My father forced my mother to leave with nothing and publicly announced he was disowning me. He forbade me from using his last name, from inheriting his fortune, and from having any association with him whatsoever. Rejected by my own father, I became a joke in our social circle. I was the person everyone mocked and isolated. Back then, Liam was the only one who stayed by my side. He walked me to and from school every single day without fail. He would step in front of me whenever I was being bullied. And when I was heartbroken and lost, he would tell me, "Sonny, you're the best person I know. Even if the entire world turns its back on you, I will always be here. I love you, and I'll work hard to give you the happy, complete family you deserve." Because of that promise, I gave up my studies in literature to go to medical school, determined to find a cure for his condition. I risked my own safety to stand by him through the vicious war for his family's inheritance. I gave up my career and my future to stay home, get pregnant, and build our family. I thought we had made it through the worst, and that our happy ending was finally beginning. But then, while I was pregnant, Liam couldn't handle being lonely and started an affair with Candy. When I found out, Liam showed no guilt for his affair, no remorse for his betrayal. He just looked at me calmly and said, "There was nothing I could do, Sonny. I didn't want it to be this way. But the other day, I saw the stretch marks on your stomach, and I suddenly felt sick. I can't feel any desire for you anymore. But I'm still a man, and I have needs. And Candy, she gives me a thrill, a feeling I've never had before. So I owe it to her to give her the respect and status she deserves." The Harrison family has strict rules, and Liam had always been known for his self-control. He always looked down on men who kept mistresses and had messy affairs. So he just asked me for a divorce straight out. I had only been pregnant for a short time, to get what I wanted, to watch Liam pay the price for what he'd done. I swallowed every last bit of humiliation, even when Liam started bringing Candy to public events and parties. Even when he humiliated me in front of the press, calling me a desperate, washed-up housewife. I endured it all for this very moment. I picked up the pen and signed my name on the divorce agreement without another thought. Right on cue, Candy called, her sweet voice cooing at Liam through the phone. "Liam, aren't you done yet?" she whined. "I'm all dressed and waiting for you. You're not getting soft and changing your mind about the divorce just because of the baby, are you? If you are, I'm never speaking to you again." Liam glanced at the revealing photo Candy had sent him. His breath caught in his throat, and his voice dropped an octave. A smile played on his lips as he carefully soothed his new love, the same way he used to soothe me. Then he snatched the signed divorce agreement off the table and stormed out, slamming the door behind him. The sharp edge of the paper left a thin, bloody line across my palm. The violent slam of the door startled the baby, who began to wail. A doctor hurried in to see what was wrong, and Liam, he never once looked back at us. I let out a soft sigh and was about to comfort the baby when the doctor suddenly grabbed my hand. "What happened to your hand? Did Liam do this?" he asked urgently. "Come with me. We need to run some tests. Don't you know that he has?" He couldn't bring himself to say the word, but I just looked up at him calmly, a genuine smile spreading across my face. "I've always been in charge of Liam's medical care," I said. "Of course I know, better than anyone. I had received Liam's lab results just yesterday. The outcome was exactly what I had anticipated. HIV positive. His cardiovascular system was already compromised by the infection. A common cold, a single sneeze, any kind of strenuous activity. Any one of those things could be enough to kill him. So, over the next month, the closer he got to Candy, the closer he got to his own death. While I was recovering in the hospital, Liam was busy taking Candy on a celebratory trip around the world. He bought her a mansion and a diamond ring. He announced to the entire world that Candy was the true Mrs. Harrison. It was as if Liam had found the passion of his youth again, throwing himself into a whirlwind romance. They spent fortunes in bars in London and made vows of eternal love under the Eiffel Tower in Paris. It was as if I had been completely erased from his memory. I couldn't be bothered with their antics. I just quietly began my preparations for the final act. Once I had recovered a bit, I took the baby and went to the old family estate. My ability to inherit the Harrison family fortune and secure my position at Harrison Corp depended on this. The most critical step was winning over the patriarch, Mr. Harrison Sr. As soon as I stepped inside the mansion, I heard furious shouting. Mr. Harrison Sr. hurled a teacup straight at Liam. "You bastard," he roared. "You raised hell all those years ago to marry that woman, and now look at you, already demanding a divorce. You've brought nothing but shame to the Harrison name." Liam said nothing, his lips pressed into a thin line as he shielded Candy behind him. His stubborn expression sent a jolt through me. It was a look I remembered all too well. Years ago, he had knelt before his father in just the same way, begging for permission to marry me. As the sole heir to the Harrison fortune, his family had already arranged a much more suitable match for him. But Liam refused, absolutely determined to be with me. He knelt before his father then, just as defiant as he was today. He knelt until the entire Harrison family finally gave in. All these years later, Liam hadn't changed at all. The only thing that was different was the woman standing beside him, the woman he now loved. It wasn't me anymore. I was hesitating, wondering if I should step forward, when the baby in my arms suddenly began to cry. The sound made Liam turn his head, but he made no move to help. He just watched coldly as I struggled to quiet the baby. His glare was filled with irritation, as if I had interrupted something important. Finally, the housekeeper, Mrs. Davis, couldn't stand it anymore and came to take the baby from me. Even the sight of his grandson didn't soften Mr. Harrison Sr.'s expression. His face remained like stone as he slapped a photo down on the table in front of me. "I don't care how you two fight or what drama you create," he said. "But there is one rule. You will not damage the Harrison family's reputation or the company's stock price. Now explain this. What is this picture?" The picture he'd thrown down was a screenshot from one of Candy's live streams. As a former influencer, Candy never missed a chance to flaunt her wealth and her relationship. During her stream the day before, a viewer had spotted a box of HIV medication on her vanity table. Even though it was just a tiny screenshot, it had already started to cause a stir online. Harrison Corp's PR team did their best to contain it, but word had already reached Mr. Harrison Sr. I looked at Liam's pale face and stepped forward. "It's just a misunderstanding," I said smoothly. "It's a new drug our research team is developing. I'll clear it up with the media. It won't affect the family's reputation at all." Seeing how I handled the situation, Mr. Harrison Sr. finally nodded, satisfied. He shot Liam a long, meaningful look. Then he took out a small gold locket and placed it around the baby's neck. "Sonny, you don't need to worry," he said. "You've given the Harrison family an heir. We will not treat you poorly. If Liam dares to cause any more trouble, you come directly to me. I'll be sure to teach that arrogant boy a lesson he won't forget." But I didn't need anyone to fight my battles for me anymore. Back when my fights with Liam were at their worst, everyone, from the Harrison family to our old friends, took his side. Some criticized my shortcomings, while others accused me of not being magnanimous enough. Liam himself had told me with utter arrogance, "Sonny, you're just a cast-off from your own family. What right do you have to challenge me? I can make or break you with a single word." It was then that I finally understood. Things like love and affection are illusions in this world. The only things that are real are the power and money you hold in your own hands. After finally managing to calm Mr. Harrison Sr. down, I was getting ready to leave. I hadn't even reached the end of the driveway when Liam slapped me across the face. He didn't hold back at all. He used his full strength. My cheek swelled instantly. Liam's expression remained just as hard and unforgiving. He stared at me with cold fury. The eyes that once looked at me with such tenderness were now filled with pure disgust. "Sonny, I really underestimated you," he sneered, pretending to agree to the divorce, then running to my grandfather to frame Candy behind my back. "Do you think that's going to win me back? That will make me fall in love with you again? I'm telling you, you're dreaming. I got sick of looking at your face a long time ago." Even if you stripped naked and stood right here, even if you died holding that baby in your arms, I wouldn't feel a shred of pity. Liam's voice was loud, his words designed to be as cruel as possible. His shouting attracted the attention of people passing by, which seemed to be exactly what he wanted. He slammed his car door and sped off, leaving me there to be stared at. A few moments later, a notification popped up on my phone. Liam had frozen all of my bank accounts, leaving me with no money to get home. When I turned back toward the house, Mrs. Davis met me with an apologetic look. Mr. Harrison Sr. is resting now. We shouldn't disturb him. Mr. Harrison asked me to tell you that you should use this time to reflect on your actions. He said if you try any more tricks, you won't see a single cent from the divorce. It just goes to show you can never truly depend on anyone but yourself. Luckily, I had seen these people for who they truly were a long time ago, so I had no expectations left to be crushed. I held my baby and started walking, never looking back. It was an hour's walk, a difficult journey for a woman who had just given birth. Every single step was excruciating. By the time I finally reached our house, I was soaked in sweat. The pain was so intense, I hardly had the strength to draw breath. The maid at the house saw my condition and rushed to help me, her face full of pity. She seemed to want to say something, but kept stopping herself. I wondered why, until I looked up and saw my belongings strewn across the floor. Our wedding photos, my treasured collection of medical journals and classical texts, all the little trinkets that held the memories of our life together. Some had been defaced with a large X drawn in red lipstick. Others were submerged in filthy water, giving off a disgusting smell. And then I heard it, the sound of Candy's soft, breathy moans from upstairs. "Liam, you're so naughty. You've torn my clothes again," she purred. "How are you going to make it up to me this time?" His deep voice rumbled back, thick with desire and affection. "Don't worry, baby. How about I sign the deed to this house over to you? We can plant your favorite flowers in the garden. We can decorate a nursery together. I'll give you everything you've ever wanted." I thought I had grown numb to it all, but hearing those words, I couldn't stop my eyes from welling up, because he had once said all those same things to me. He had sworn to the heavens that he would give me and our child the best life imaginable. But now, he had torn out the flowers I planted and thrown away our wedding photos. He wouldn't even look at our own child. The fickleness and cruelty of the human heart. I had now experienced it in its purest form. After a moment's thought, I wiped away my tears, held my baby close, and walked out the door. The maid, worried, hurried after me. "Ma'am, where are you going all by yourself this late? What about all your things? You're not taking any of them." I took a deep breath and spoke with firm, controlled resolve. "I don't want them. A tainted man and a tainted past. I was leaving them both behind." I warned the maid not to touch anything that Liam or Candy had come into contact with. I told her to be extremely careful and to disinfect everything thoroughly. She nodded vigorously, then, worried I had nowhere to go, pressed a few $100s into my hand for a hotel room. "Ma'am, he still cares about you deep down," she said, trying to comfort me. You wait. Once he's had his fun and is ready to settle down, he'll come back to you." But there wouldn't be time for that, because Liam wasn't going to live that long. And just as I expected, that very night, Liam started coughing up blood in Candy's bed and was rushed to the hospital. When I got to the hospital, the entrance was swarming with reporters and paparazzi. They were all there with their cameras, hoping to get a major scoop on Liam Harrison. I used the back entrance to get to his room. I walked in right as the hospital director was speaking to Liam, a worried look on his face. "Mr. Harrison, there's no mistake in the test results," he said gravely. "Your case is different from most. You have a congenital heart condition. Your situation is critical, and you must be admitted for treatment immediately." Liam, unable to accept the diagnosis, exploded in anger. "That's ridiculous," he yelled. "I've always been careful. I get regular checkups. How could I possibly have contracted something like this? There must be something wrong with your doctors here. Let me out of here. I'm going to get the best specialists to run their own tests." He angrily crumpled the diagnostic report into a ball, refusing to listen to a word the director said. As if to prove there was nothing wrong with him, Liam stood up and started walking toward the door. But he didn't even make it to the doorway before another mouthful of blood spilled from his lips. I rushed forward to support him as he swayed on his feet. Then I took the surgical consent form and signed my name with a practiced hand. I am Liam Harrison's legal wife. I'll sign for him, I stated. You can all go and prepare for the procedure. I'll handle him. Hearing this, the director finally let out a sigh of relief. He knew better than to argue with a man like Liam, so he wiped the sweat from his brow and led his team out of the room. I sat down next to Liam and began to speak to him in a calm, quiet voice. Some things are just decided by fate, I said softly. If you cooperate with the treatment, there might be a slim chance of survival. A slim chance. The words hung in the air, heavy with finality. It was as good as a death sentence. As expected, when he heard those words, Liam's head shot up. He grabbed my hand, his grip as desperate as a frightened child's. Sonny, you're a doctor. You're my wife. You know me better than anyone, he pleaded. You have to know this is impossible. How could I have something like this? Liam kept repeating the words, over and over, as if saying them enough would change the reality of his fate. I gently pulled my hand away and placed the lab report back in front of him. Liam, running from this won't change anything. He lowered his gaze, reading the few lines that held his death sentence again and again. After a long moment, he slowly looked up at me. His expression was a mixture of agony and dawning comprehension. You already knew, he whispered. You've always managed my health. You knew about this, didn't you? Why didn't you tell me, Sonny? Why? We're husband and wife. How could you do this to me? Seeing the pained, furious look on his face, I had to suppress a laugh. It wasn't long ago, in this very hospital, that he had chosen my most vulnerable moment to demand a divorce. And now he had the audacity to talk about us being husband and wife. I shook my head, a feeling of weary resignation washing over me. Liam, if I had told you, would you have listened? Have you listened to a single thing I've said to you these past few months? When Liam first started his affair with Candy, I said everything there was to say. I reminded him of our childhood together. I talked about all the years we had supported each other. I pleaded with him to think about the future of our unborn child. But it didn't matter what I said or how I begged. The only person on his mind was Candy and the momentary thrill she gave him. So even if I had told him the truth, he would have just assumed it was another one of my jealous tricks to stop the divorce. Faced with my question now, Liam was speechless. A wave of guilt seemed to calm him. He smoothed out the crumpled report in his hands and asked quietly, Sonny, am I going to die? He seemed terrified of the answer. Before I could respond, he quickly cut me off. Never mind, let's not talk about it. Sonny, I didn't think you'd still be willing to come see me. I thought you would never speak to me again. I looked into his hopeful eyes and remained silent. I wasn't doing any of this for him, of course. I was doing it for myself. I hadn't yet solidified my position at Harrison Corp. Therefore, before Liam died, I needed to act. I needed to use him one last time. Use his failing body as my springboard to leap into a new life. I convinced Liam to agree to the surgery. Knowing his time was short, he lost all of his old arrogance. He was like a tiger that had its teeth pulled, meekly following my instructions. While Liam was in surgery, I had every single person on the hospital staff sign a non-disclosure agreement. Then, with my baby in my arms, I went to the Harrison estate. Mr. Harrison Sr. was still completely in the dark. When he saw the lab report, he flew into a rage. He smashed nearly everything within his reach. How could this happen? How, he bellowed. Sonny, you were always with him. Didn't you ever try to talk some sense into your husband? The heir to Harrison Corp, infected with a disease like this. If this gets out, how will Liam ever show his face in public again? How are we supposed to keep the stock price from plummeting? The thought made Mr. Harrison Sr. clutch his chest in anguish. He sank on the sofa, gasping for air. I looked at the frail old man and offered a gentle reminder. Given Liam's current condition, it's highly unlikely he'll live long enough to inherit the company. There is no cure for HIV, and that's on top of his congenital heart defect. Even if the surgery is a success, it will only buy him a little more time. After this, the slightest illness or stress could kill him. He has a month to live at most. Mr. Harrison Sr. seemed to stop breathing altogether. In the past, he could make a show of scolding Liam, then leave me to clean up the mess. But now, not even a miracle could save his grandson's life. This titan of industry, a man who had been proud his entire life, actually had tears in his eyes as he stood before me. He let out a long, heavy sigh and slapped the arm of his chair. What a tragedy for this family. What a tragedy, he lamented. Is the Harrison legacy, built over 100 years, going to be destroyed on my watch? I've dedicated my entire life to this company, only to end up losing my son in middle age and now my grandson in my final years. The thought was so painful he nearly collapsed right then and there. I stepped forward and said gently, "Grandfather, you still have a great grandson. He's healthy, and he will grow up to be a good, respectful boy. He is a Harrison. He has Harrison blood in his veins. He won't let you down." My words finally seemed to register with him. He looked up, his expression shifting into something complex. At his age, he couldn't wait for another heir to be born, and it was better to keep the empire he had built within the family than to let it fall into the hands of outsiders. This child was Liam's, the only remaining Harrison bloodline. He had no other choice, and just as I predicted, after a brief internal struggle, Mr. Harrison Sr. agreed to my terms. We negotiated through the night and finally drew up a contract that satisfied us both. My son would inherit the entire Harrison estate, and I would serve as acting CEO of the corporation. My only condition was that I would handle this crisis for the family. As soon as the contract was signed, Mr. Harrison Sr. collapsed. The shock of it all had been too much for him to bear. In a single night, he seemed to have aged 20 years. And with that, the Harrison family and its fortune were firmly in my grasp. Liam had been reduced to a disposable pawn. His life, his reputation, his very survival. All of it was now up to me. But there were still some scores to settle, and I had no intention of letting Liam die a quick and easy death. I stayed with him through his surgery and remained by his bedside during his recovery. After his brush with death, Liam seemed to have done some thinking. He grew quiet, and the way he looked at me was much softer. But every now and then, he would still bring up Candy. "Does Candy know that I'm sick?" he'd ask. "Why hasn't she come to visit me? Is she sick too?" He asked me the same questions over and over, as if he was trying to convince himself of the answers. It was just like when he refused to accept his own diagnosis. Now, he couldn't accept that Candy had abandoned him. I poured him a glass of water, set it on his bedside table, and spoke slowly. "You already know the answer, don't you? You got this from her. Of course, she's not going to come see you." But that wasn't all. The night Liam started coughing up blood, Candy didn't call an ambulance. Instead, terrified of being implicated, she grabbed all the valuable jewelry and cash from the house and ran. My people intercepted her on the road. She's currently at the police station, being questioned. Seeing the confusion on Liam's face, I smiled. Knowingly transmitting a disease is a crime, and given how many partners she's had, she could be facing serious jail time. "Don't you worry," I added. "If you're not well enough to testify, I can appear in court on your behalf. As your wife. After all, we're not officially divorced yet." Liam caught the sarcasm in my voice. He was also clearly stunned by the mention of her many partners. He looked at me, wanting to argue, but his eyes just turned red with unshed tears. I pressed my advantage, placing the file my investigators had compiled on the table in front of him. I then proceeded to tell him, in unflinching detail, the story of Candy's life. How she had dropped out of school as a teenager and made her way by moving from one wealthy man to another. How she used her money to create her rich girl persona, and how she had used her considerable talents to sink her hooks into him. "Liam," I asked, "did it never once occur to you? How could a girl as young as Candy have so much experience if she wasn't a professional? How else could she give you all those unexpected thrills?" The innocent first love you imagined was actually a seasoned socialite who has been with more men than you can count. You thought you were reliving some grand, passionate romance, but she was just using you as a meal ticket, a stepping stone into high society. Liam, you've been so proud your entire life. How did you let yourself be played so easily by a girl like that? Was it love, or were you just that pathetic? Faced with my relentless questions, Liam's fists clenched tighter and tighter, but he couldn't manage a single word of protest. He wasn't a fool. He knew exactly what this disease meant for him. He also knew that I was the only person he could rely on now. Just like his grandfather, he had no other choice. I began the process of taking control of the company. With Liam's reluctant help, I started systematically removing his old loyalists from their positions. But there's no such thing as a perfect secret. Even though the Harrisons and I were doing everything we could to keep the news contained, the story of Liam's illness eventually leaked. To control the narrative, I called a press conference. And there, in front of everyone, I announced the full story of how Liam had gotten sick. The announcement caused an immediate firestorm. Even Liam saw the video from his hospital bed. The obedient patient he had been since his diagnosis vanished, and he finally lost his temper with me. "Sonny, why would you do that?" he roared. "Do you have any idea what this will do to the company's stock? To the Harrison family's reputation? You've always been so careful, so strategic. Why would you do something so impulsive? You're getting back at me, aren't you? This is your revenge. Sonny, how can you be so cruel? I already apologized to you. Why won't you just let this go?" I watched him, completely hysterical. For a split second, it was like looking in a mirror at my past self. The woman who had just learned of his affair. The woman he had thrown out of her own home. I, too, had been that person, heartbroken and sobbing uncontrollably. Now, it was finally his turn to feel that same despair. I smiled as I explained the situation to him. "Don't worry," I said. "Mr. Harrison Sr. has already publicly disowned you. He has put me in charge of the company and has named my son as the next heir to the Harrison estate." The break was clean, so the company's stock price wasn't affected too badly. I also took the opportunity to launch a charitable foundation in the family's name, which has been very well received. Right now, the whole world sees me as the wronged, noble wife. Liam looked as if he'd been struck by lightning. He just stood there, shaking his head in disbelief. "That's impossible. Absolutely impossible. How could my grandfather do that to me? How could he just abandon me? I'm his only grandson, his only heir." Liam stumbled backward, his eyes wide with shock and pain. I kept smiling as I gave him his answer. "Because he had no other choice. It's just like when all of you ganged up on me. I put up with it all, not because I loved you so much, but because I had no other choice. I had no family of my own to support me. I had given up my career for Liam, losing my only means of independence. I was completely dependent on the Harrison family. I had no power to fight with him, no standing to ask for a divorce. If I were thrown out, I would once again become the joke of our social circle. I refused to go back to that life of being scorned and ridiculed by everyone. But now that I control Harrison Corp., everything is different. When faced with this much money and power, everyone bows down. It doesn't matter if they mean it or not, whether they like it or not. They all have to bow their heads to me, just like Mr. Harrison Sr. did, and just like Liam was doing now. No matter how angry or furious he got, all he could do was lie there in his bed and wait for me to show him a shred of mercy. "Sonny, do you have any idea what people are saying about me out there?" he asked. "They're saying that I rubbed my temples, cutting him off impatiently. Of course I know, because what I've endured from you and everyone else over the years is 1,000 times worse. I'm just returning the favor, letting you feel a little of what I felt. I want you to know what it's like to have your life hanging by a thread, to be scorned by everyone, to feel like you can't hold your head high anywhere you go. This is exactly the punishment you deserve." But his punishment was far from over. After everything that had happened, Liam's health declined rapidly. He understood that even if medication kept him alive, he could never go back to the glamorous life he once led. His name was now synonymous with disease. His downfall had become a public spectacle. All that awaited him was a lifetime of suspicion and gossip. For a man like Liam, who had always been on top of the world, that kind of life was a fate worse than death. When a person loses the will to live, their body quickly follows. Liam's condition grew worse with each passing day. He became bedridden, dependent on a ventilator to breathe. His mind began to fail, drifting in and out of clarity. There were times he would forget everything that had happened. Other times, he would curse Candy's name over and over. But mostly, he just stared at the blank ceiling. I asked him once what he was thinking about. "Our past," he said. "Sonny, do you remember? When we were kids, you got sick and you refused to get your shot. I was the one who sat with you. I held your hand and stayed with you the whole time. I remember thinking then that I wanted to be with you forever, that I wanted to be the one with you at the very end. Looks like I'm getting my wish," he whispered. I just never thought my end would come so soon. I never thought our love would end so soon, either. They say a man's words are kindest when he is about to die. Liam finally seemed to realize what a monster he had been. To make up for it, he wrote a will leaving everything he owned to me. It was a pointless gesture, really. The mandatory cooling-off period for our divorce hadn't expired. As his legal wife, I was already entitled to inherit everything. What I didn't expect, however, was that Mr. Harrison Sr. would be the first to go. He said that at his age, he couldn't bear the pain of burying his own grandson, so he chose to take his own life. And just like that, at the end of his life, Liam was left with no one in the world but me. The closest thing he had to family. On the day he died, he finally remembered the child who was his own flesh and blood. He asked if he could see him just once. I calmly refused. Max is too little, I said. I can't risk him getting infected. Max! Hearing the name, Liam's eyes brightened for a fleeting second before the light faded away again. He remembered it was the name we had chosen together for our child. He had promised then that he would be the best father in the world. But now, all that was left of his life was death and grief. So, it wasn't that Liam truly understood his mistakes. He was just afraid, terrified of the end that was coming for him. And as he had feared, his death was not a peaceful one. He was emaciated, his cheeks hollowed out. His skin was covered in ugly lesions. Staring down at his frail body, I felt a moment of strange detachment. Was this really the man I had loved for so many years? It didn't matter anymore. I stepped forward, gently closed his eyes, and handed his body over to the funeral home. With Liam's death, the past was finally gone. And now, I was going to enjoy what came next. A life that was truly, finally my own.